What is a crime? A crime, first and foremost, is not a witch hunt. So in order for a thing to qualify as a crime, that thing must have been reduced into codification. There's a book that deals with all these codifications, and we call them the Penal Code. So the Penal Code is a volume that captures works or certain acts that must be punished. So penal means something that can be punished. So when it's being punished, it's called penalty. So that is what we call penal. Penal are acts that ought to be punished by law. So when that act is being punished by law, then we say the penalty for such and such is such. So let's go back. So when an act has been written down, chances are the framers and those people that were writing these statutes did not explore every possible scenario. They are drafters. So the drafters don't look at the scenarios in which such a thing must occur. That is why judges come in. So judges come in to improve an operation of a statute. Judges come in to weigh the constitutionality of a statute. And when judges come to improve the operation of a statute, judges from time to time reinvent laws. For lack of a better word, allow me just use the word reinvent. So judges have come to contribute by definition that if such and such was to happen, then this is what such and such would mean. And that is why whenever you're looking at a finding of a judge, it's important to look at what the judge arrived at, but more importantly, what was the reasoning of that judge, what it's called ratio decidendi. So in the ratio decidendum of a judge, that is where now the judge brings in the thought pattern of the judge, the thinking process of that judge, in helping us understand the operation of that statute when that statute is applied against an act. Actus non facit ream nisi sit rea simply means this: an act does not make an individual guilty not until that individual had a guilty mind. So that is the meaning of this Latin maxim. So whenever we are looking at an act that an individual has performed, we are constantly looking at, did that act have a point of meeting with an existing written law? So when we have that, then the individual has met the preliminary requirement that this act had an intercept with this written law. But does that in itself make an individual guilty? Then we bring in that intervening factor that an individual also must demonstrate a guilty mind. So this is whereby if an individual has done something, then you look at what happened shortly after that offense, then we arrive at the guiltiness of the individual. So if I'm an individual and I have committed an act, so instead of taking to flight, I sit there, then that means that my mind was not fruitful. So the mind of that individual, regardless of what act the individual has committed, that fruitfulness of the mind is very important. So the way we balance the fruitfulness of the mind is by introducing something entirely interesting called a valid defense. So a valid defense is a very important ingredient in the performance and the threshold of a crime. So this is what a crime is. A crime is a guilty act already that is codified, that is written down, that is performed by an individual with a guilty mind without a valid defense. When an individual can raise a valid defense, and there are numerous defenses, self-defense is a defense. So if an individual approaches me in town and that individual comes with his bare knuckles, it is not self-defense of me to go and get an axe to come against that individual. So whenever we are applying also the aspect of self-defense, we must look at, did the force you meet the force that was coming against you, did that force meet? Was that force proportionate? If a force is not proportionate, then that is not self-defense. You cannot claim self-defense in an instance whereby someone is coming against you bare knuckles and you remove your pistol and you swat the individual. In so doing, that one has not met the self-defense. So self-defense is only a legitimate defense when we apply the measures of self-defense. The measures of self-defense is what is called the appropriate defense that you've met the defense, the effort and the force that was coming against you. So if someone comes against you bare knuckles, self-defense is when you go against them bare knuckles. When someone comes against you with a stick, self-defense is when you go against them with a stick, because you're meeting the level of challenge by the level of you tackling that challenge. So that is how the courts and the entire jurisprudence around criminal law is built around helping us understanding those four important ingredients. That an act must be written. You cannot charge someone for something that did not exist. You cannot charge me today for something, a law that came into force today, for something that I did last month or even yesterday. The law only comes into force when the president has appended his signature. It is only at that point that that law comes to force. When that law comes to force, then anything that comes subsequent, that law now kicks in. But whenever something had not come into force, then that is not a crime. So that is important. And guilty act. That guilty act must be committed by an individual, and that individual needs to have a guilty mind, and that individual a valid defense should be taken away from him. If the courts by applying facts will take away a valid defense, then that individual is guilty. So the mitigating factor here, there are only two mitigating factors: the guiltiness of the mind and a valid defense. My name is Ogwang. I want to hope that I have responded to this question competently to your satisfaction. And if you might feel that there might be areas that I might have forsaken, I would welcome your interaction in the comment section, and let's get to learn from each other. Like I always say, I am merely a conversation starter. And as a conversation starter, I'm starting this conversation with only 2 cents of reasoning, and I welcome your other sense, your contribution in the subject matter, so that together we can learn from each other. I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care. God bless and bye-bye.